Hi everybody. Hey, well, today's one of those days when I'm going to address way too many issues. I'll probably break this down into a couple of different videos so I can load them at different times. Hey, first of all, I wanted to tell you about Paul Craig Roberts. He had a great article on this whole thing with the Federal Reserve and how they're manipulating gold and silver. You know, we're told that gold and silver keeps its value, but when you have people in positions of power, they can manipulate it for short periods of time. So don't lose your faith in gold and silver. Just understand the process here. And to help you do that, I want to read this short excerpt from Paul Craig Roberts' article. Okay, so here it is. The Federal Reserve began its April Fool's assault on gold by sending the word to brokerage houses, which quickly went out to clients, that hedge funds and other large investors were going to unload their gold positions and that clients should get out of the precious metal market prior to these sales. As this inside information was the government's own strategy, individuals cannot be prosecuted for acting on it. By this operation, the Federal Reserve, a totally corrupt entity, was able to combine individual flight with institutional flight. Bullion prices took a big hit, and bullishness departed from the gold and silver markets. The flow of dollars into bullion, which threatened to become a torrent, was stopped. For now, it seems that the Fed has succeeded in creating wariness among Americans about the virtues of gold and silver, and thus the Federal Reserve has extended the time that it can print money to keep the house of cards standing. Very important. This time could be short, or it could last a couple of years. Notice, like with David Stockman, they're saying between 2 and 5 years usually. However, for the Russians and Chinese, whose central banks have more dollars than they any longer want, and for the 1.3 billion Indians in India, the lower price for gold that the Federal Reserve has engineered is an opportunity, not for Americans or people that aren't paying attention. They see the opportunity that the Federal Reserve has given them to purchase gold at $350 to $400 an ounce less than the 2 years ago price. The Federal Reserve's attack on bullion is an act of desperation that, when widely recognized, will doom its policy. As I have explained previously, the orchestrated move against gold and silver is to protect the exchange value of the U.S. dollar. If bullion were not a threat, the government would not be attacking it. Okay, so I think you see, when corruption reigns, the people mourn. It's no different than it was in feudal Europe or imperial China or any other place where the ruling class are really thugs, butchers, and criminals. And they're going to do everything they can to get your wealth. They're after your kids. There was a thing I saw the other day, and maybe some of you are familiar with it, where they really are trying to destroy the family. They're saying that kids don't belong to parents or, to families. They belong to the community, to the state. And they use very obvious Marxist terms to push their agenda. And that's everywhere now. The United States is done, okay? It's like I said, if there's any hope for righteousness in the future, the people of decency and righteousness, who are trying to do the right thing, do things the right way, right use of something, they got to pull away. So I don't know how that's going to come out, but I don't see any other way around it. The United States has adopted policies, both domestic and foreign, that are contrary, that are at odds with righteousness. And the people back it up, at least the ones that are voting. I know a lot of us have dropped out of that process because we know it's worthless. But, here I go back on that topic again about how bad the country is. No, I don't see it being saved at all. As a matter of fact, quite the opposite. I think it deserves to be destroyed. So those of us who don't want to partake of those sins need to do the best we can to get away, to get out of it. And like I say, it'll probably end up breaking down into smaller units, and maybe a couple of those will be worth hanging out in. I don't know. To get there, though, is going to be horrible. There'll probably be some things that I don't even want to think about right now. But those of you who have tried to stay informed know how horrible this thing can actually turn out. So I really don't want to talk about that today. I do want to talk about something else that's up, though. You know, the Southern Baptist Convention, along with a lot of other churches, I guess there's a convention, a big convention going on somewhere back east, and I'm sorry I don't have the particulars on that, but churches are calling for the abolition of the Second Amendment. You know, I get amazed at, and I'm sorry, it's like I said, I don't follow traditional Christianity because it's, and I'm sorry if I'm offending anyone, but it's just a fact of history. You know, just like the Roman Empire controlled the Council of Yavna to invent rabbinic Judaism that they could get along with in the empire, you know, the empire okayed it. The same thing happened to Christianity. By and large, I mean, there are groups that have broken off the traditional Christian ethics, whatever you want to call it. I guess I shouldn't even call them ethics. Not that they're bad, but the point is that, you know, what we have today is a Romanized version of the Zealot movement, and we've called it Christianity. I don't know if any of you understand that, but the Messianic movement was a Zealot movement to throw off the continuum of the foreign rulers, Rome at the time, and to reinstitute the legitimate throne of David. So anyway, however you want to view that, I want to talk a little bit about the Second Amendment thing real quick. And I'm going to quote a couple of scriptures because I hear where these Christians are coming from and how they're trying to justify it. You know, Romans 13, give unto Caesar's that which is Caesar's, and their reasoning with it is totally corrupt, okay? Because they take that one scripture and they try to apply it to anything that the government says that's right, and they disregard everything else in the scriptures about standing up against corruption, be it at government level or the individual level, but particularly at the government level. What about the three guys that were thrown into the fire under King Nebuchadnezzar, or Daniel, you know, or any number of other things that you can read in the Old Testament and the New, you know, the martyrs and all that. And they're made to sound like they're these pacifists, and they weren't. You know, when Jesus was caught in the Garden of Gethsemane, you know, Peter took out a sword, and rightly, you know, Jesus said, hey, don't do that. You know, there's more of them than there are of us. They're going to kill you. That's really what he meant. Those who live by the sword will die by the sword. It was a specific thing there. And we've changed it into this whole other idea, this whole other paradigm. But Jesus didn't tell him to throw away his sword. He said, put it away. So that's what he did. He didn't take it. He didn't give it back to the Romans. Oh, and another interjection here, you know, those churches that are calling for an end of the Second Amendment, of course, they're looking at pacifism and things like that as a way to, you know, get the people to acquiesce to the government. But they're probably also looking at that thing in Isaiah where it says, and in that day they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks, and nation shall not rise against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Notice it's about nations. The last days, God's war with the nations. He's still not taking away individual right to self-defense. And kind of the proof of that is in the New Testament, of course, when Jesus said, if a man has 2 cloaks, let him sell one and buy a sword. Doesn't sound too pacifistic to me when it comes to sustaining your own life and the life of your loved one or lives of your loved ones. You know, the establishment uses your own belief system, your own ideas against you. They're very good at that. I mean, you got to understand, these are psychological warfare professionals. They know how to turn on a dime. They know how to twist things and make you doubt yourself. That's their job. And it's so bad in the United States right now. It's, you know, if you want to know what truth is, you have to really hunger and thirst for it, because it's not going to come to you any other way. You have to hunger and thirst for righteousness, after righteousness. You know, it's not just going to ooze into your being, you know, because you've got to make a choice. And I've talked about that before. You know, God said, in the last days I will send them strong delusion that they will believe a lie. If God is going to send strong delusion, it's because he realized the people choose that. They want it. Isaiah said it another way, you know, teach unto us things that are easy to understand. Teach unto us lies and deceits. And that's what they ask for. It's all, you know, like this gay marriage thing. I don't bash gays. Frankly, I feel bad for them. You know, you'll have to pardon me, but I got to say this. I just got to say it. You know, there was a thing about an MSNBC anchor, Crystal Ball, that was using her 4-year-old daughter to support gay marriage. You know, what is wrong with these people? I'm sorry, but yes, I do believe that gays and lesbians are doing a disgusting thing, okay? That is not the right use of what they are. That is the wrong use, and that's the easiest way to go about it. But I'm not going to use you know, scriptures other than to say that Isaiah called it the disgusting thing, okay? And that they hide their sin, that they no longer hide their sin. It's out in the open like Sodom and Gomorrah. That's not a good thing. If you want to be gay or lesbian, do it underneath, you know? But you're poisoning the entire, you know, society. And I'll just say that. Now, I don't have anything against you. Just don't come to me with it. Don't come to my kids with it. Don't try to tell the world that it's right. All right? Now, I was involved in something similar 30 years ago, and I wasn't there to force my ideas on other people. I just didn't want government to cause me any trouble for my choices. That's the thing. It was none of their business. And I'd agree with you there. It's none of the government's business. But to try to do this other stuff that you're doing, the way it's so pervasive, you know, I'm sorry, but there is something to Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay, I'm sorry, there is. And we'll talk about that some other time. I always put it off, don't I? But anyway, so you have, you know, Isaiah calling it the disgusting thing. But if you don't want to talk politics or religion, let's just talk, you know, dirty, okay, just for once. You remember who Sam Kinison was? He was a comedian, kind of a loudmouth comedian, dirty mouth too. Well, I'm gonna quote him because I kind of like this, okay? And you parents there, if you have kids, you might want them to, you know, go away for a few minutes here while I say this. It's a real short quote. It says, "How can a guy find love in another guy's hairy ass?" Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. And I can't deliver it like Sam Kinison did, but I think that pretty well says it all. It goes against the real rudimentary nature of things. Oh yeah, we've got homosexual insects and animals, etc., etc. You know what most of that is? It's just animal instinct. They don't know what they've got. They don't know who they're grabbing, you know, that kind of thing. I think it'd be real hard to prove what's going on in an animal's brain and saying that it's obviously homosexual, you know, intrinsically homosexual behavior. I frankly don't believe it. And I imagine there's some scientific studies out there that people go through and say, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, you know what? I don't really care. Just don't throw it on the rest of us, okay? Go and do your thing on the side. Stop poisoning our kids with it. If our kids are gay, they'll grow up understanding that, and hopefully they won't be, you know, treated wrongly. No, I don't agree with that. Although in the Old Testament days, of course, if a man laid with another man, it was death. You know, right now. Not so much women. Even God understood the things that could happen to women that could bring him to the point where they're like, where they don't trust men, and so they stay with women. But I don't want to get into all that philosophical discussion. Let's just go back to Sam Kinison. Okay, I like that. And I have to throw a little snapshot in here real quick. I hope you understand that this whole push, acceptance of gays and lesbians, even though the government and some of the churches are, you know, seeming like they're opposed to it, or at least not, you know, 100% behind it. They really are. And it's actually a move by the eugenics people, the eugenicists, to as a way to control population. And you know, it's just one of their methods. not just depopulating us by a soft kill and hard kill like wars and things, and then poisons the water and food, but to degenerate our natural sexuality, so that we don't produce. So that's the reason why it's become so trendy, and you'll see it continue that way. I frankly don't know what the end result was of the Supreme Court deal this last couple of weeks on this gay marriage thing. Maybe they haven't rendered their decision yet. But it really doesn't matter what they say. The fact is that the entire society now, as with that MSNBC anchor, is pushing it, to the point where, if you're not gay or lesbian, the idea is there's something wrong with you. So I just need to throw that in. This is part of the eugenicists' takeover of the world and the depopulation and destruction of humanity. And yes, I do believe that. No, better than that. I know that that's the case. They've even said so in their documents. All right. You probably know that it was leaked that James Holmes, the shooter in Aurora, was in fact on antidepressant drugs. They wanted to suppress that information, and of course now it's out thanks to several people who are true investigative reporters and are now suffering for it. The fact of the matter is that they don't want to talk about that because and most of you already know that the drug industry, the pharmaceutical industry, is corrupt. It's bought off all of our politicians, the AMA, doctors, everybody, and they've made natural substances illegal, and their synthetic substances legal, but you have to have prescriptions for it by and large, and that's so that they can control the price in the market and all of that. Why do I say that? Well, because it's real interesting to me that they say, well, guns cause the massacres and the deaths that we've had in this country, the murders and the mass shootings and things like that. And they never bring up the drugs. Well, apples and apples, oranges to oranges. If you're going to say that guns cause death, then you could also say that drugs cause death, but they never talk about that. There's been a small discussion on people that are brave enough to bring it up, but then of course they get slapped down by the lobbyists and the government. Can you see how corrupt our system is from top to bottom? It doesn't deserve to stay in existence. The children growing up in this society don't have a chance. Not an ice cube's chance in hell. I'll just go back to what I said about Judge Learned Hand a long time ago. I read a quote from him where he talked about the Constitution having to be in the hearts of men and women, and if it's not there, no court can help you keep it. And that's very true. The new understanding of today, this the way that we're handling things almost on every issue is not a new understanding, ladies and gentlemen. It's a reinstitution of the old degeneracy, the old sinful systems that we tried to get away from with Jesus Christ, the Magna Carta, the Declaration of Independence, all of that. It's a seed of destruction. And it's no longer just a seed in our culture, in our society here in the United States anymore. It is a full-blown forest. Okay. Fox News is reporting of an incident, and it's extant in military and police circles that Christianity is a terrorist group. I would say that Christianity in the form of pure Christianity, whatever that is, and what do I mean by that? I mean non-state sponsored Christianity. What I said a few minutes ago about Rome, and it's the same thing here in this country. There's some states, South Carolina, I think, that's trying to make Christianity a state religion. That's what I mean. We've totally lost our understanding of the Constitution, and we don't care about it anymore or the beauty of it. Not that they would probably force Christianity on anybody, but the state-sponsored form of Christianity denies the meat. Okay? It's not even giving good milk, but it's certainly denying the meat of the gospel and of the scriptures. To call Christians terrorists, they're not going to talk about the ones that are meeting in that convention, like the Southern Baptist Convention, calling for an end to the Second Amendment. They're going to talk about true Christians who understand, that self-defense is an inherent right to life, anybody's life. People who object to, collectivism. Now, the New Testament talks about, where the community holds all things in common. Okay, but that's not forced on everyone. You take vows. You agree to enter into that, and it's kind of a communism, I guess, in a way, if, in a definition of sorts, but it's done voluntarily, and unlike so many systems like that today, where they take from you and they don't give you anything back. The elite keep it, or the government keeps it, or whatever. It's an actually shared, process where it's done from a point of love, and true love, not this false love with kids, being photographed with kids and all that stuff that these politicians do. Even Hitler did that. Just because I see a politician with a kid doesn't say in my mind this is a good guy. Quite the opposite usually. I realize that that's propaganda when I see it. So anyway, we're in a lot of trouble here. They're equating us, Christians, and conservatives or those types of people with Al-Qaeda, Hamas, the KKK. You saw this coming, and I've talked about it before with the Southern Poverty Law Center, the Department of Justice, DHS, the whole LA Times thing that I talked about a little while ago. This is getting to epidemic proportions where they are really after people's hearts and minds to go after the decent people of the earth. This is a war, ladies and gentlemen. Satan is, I know how absurd it is to talk. A lot of people feel it's absurd to talk about it, but I think all the evidence is right in front of you if you open your eyes. And here's the proof. If things are this bad, if there's really a Satan pulling this thing off, and I think he will reveal himself eventually, as an angel of light, probably a white guy. Do you hear me out there? Huh? Yeah? You white guy? I know who you are. An angel of light. Well, that's really interesting how they put that. He's going to be a white guy, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely a white guy. All right? His messenger is Obama at the present time, and maybe another guy. I alluded to that a little while ago, but I'll refrain from saying that here for right now. But that's who you're going to see. Yeah, he's going to make an appearance. And you know what's really neat about that? Because if you think about logic, if the devil exists, that means that God exists. Isn't that wonderful? So, in a lot of ways, you're proving what you're trying to disprove. All right. ATF is getting a massive database. It's on the FedBizGov site. They want to be able to know not only who you are and your assets, but who your relatives are, who your contacts are, your associates, your businesses, everything about you. The Fourth Amendment is gone, ladies and gentlemen. And of course they say, oh, it's to fight criminals. In this illegitimate drug war that they've used to take away all of our rights, and of course Al-Qaeda to take away all our rights. If they're really concerned about criminals, why don't they go after the banksters? No, they're not going to do that because they are one and the same. Our government and everything they do are one and the same with the bankers, okay? I think you know that now. Real quick word about chemtrails. Aluminum, barium, fluoride, strontium. Look it up, find out what's going on. The government's starting to admit this is going on, trying to, climate change, trying to prevent climate change, which is totally absurd. But what you really see happening here is the poisoning of the earth, the air and the water and the food, your bodies. That's what's really going on here. There's a report on them spraying in the Eastern Pacific. Gee, that's off the California coast. I wonder why California's having so much trouble with rain and water. Just wonder. Global dimming, 22%. You got to ask what these guys are really up to. They can't be stupid enough to not know that plants need sunlight for photosynthesis. Do you see that this is an absolute war on mankind, on life on Earth? 22% dimming we've had in the last, I don't know how long that was, 20, 30 years. because of these sprays. Wow. And they're saying that carbon dioxide's bad, so they're starving the plant life. No light for photosynthesis, no carbon dioxide for the metabolism of the plants. Huh. Which then directly affects us, not to mention the poisons, the barium, the strontium, the aluminum, all of that. I'll tell you what, I heard a guy talking about aquaponics. You know, you probably shouldn't even grow food outside anymore. You should use an aquaponics procedure. Maybe he's right. Maybe we should do that. Okay, well, I've spent more time here than I really wanted to today. I'll get back on some things with you again a little bit later. Just be aware, ladies and gentlemen. I think it really is true. I think we need to leave as best we can this corrupt, degenerate society that is called the United States of America. It'll probably be taken down for us, but you know, I honestly don't know where the safe havens are, you know, for that. You know, there's a scripture and it says, when you see the abomination and desolation, stand ye in the holy place. And we have this idea of holy, and I've talked about this in some of my earlier videos about the Bible and things. We think of holy as a you know, kind of like, you know, the righteousness idea, and there is something of a meaning to that. But the real meaning of the term means separation. All right, it means separation. So separate yourself. Plan your escape. Hopefully God will show us a place to go here one of these days and give us the power to withstand the onslaught of this horrible adversary. God bless you all.